Welcome to Ill-Equipped History, where two best friends do their best to tell you a story from history. Sorry, everyone. I'm sick still, and apparently I am a cross between a boy going through puberty and Winnie the Pooh today. I'm Morgan, joined by my co-host, Emileigh.
I shouldn't be laughing at this. Hi. I'm so sorry. I love
It's
you
okay.
so much.
I know you do.
Yeah.
So how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm ready for school to start again. It's only 3 days in summer, and I'm like, please, someone help me.
Already over it?
Yeah. I'm like having to find babysitters so I can go to work meetings and stuff, and I'm like, dang it, I was happy when you guys, were at school.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was easier. Now, I love my kids. I love them dearly. They are wild. And I am a pretty chill person, so...
I was just telling Kyle that today. It takes a lot to push you over the edge because you are just a naturally chill person.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on for sure.
They get me pretty overwhelmed. Yesterday at the post office, because Nick forgot to mail off a boat rudder. I didn't even know he was selling one, but I had to go mail that off for him. And of course they didn't have the right size box outside, so then I had to hold the boat rudder while wrangling these children who wanted to climb me like a tree, while at the post office who only had one lady checking out people, which was not her fault. She was doing a great job. They did eventually get 2 people, but there were 20 people in line.
Oh my gosh.
And my children are bouncing off the walls. They're touching, fucking everything. And I'm trying to be a nice, gentle parent, at least out in public, so I don't get a phone call or a visit. And I think at one point I said, I will take your TV away for an entire week if you do not stop touching the birthday cards. That was a sentence that came out of my mouth. And they did stop touching the birthday cards. They used the box that I had it in originally while I was checking out to have a cardboard battle at the post office. They ripped off a flap of it and were like, boo, boo, boo. And everyone thought it was funny, and I wanted to die.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
The lady, when I left, she instead of saying goodbye, she said good luck.
She knew. She knew.
I was like, at least they're being nice. At least they're not screaming and stuff.
Right.
I'm like, could you please just keep your hands to yourself?
Personal boundaries.
Yeah, I literally had to tell him a million times, please stop picking up your sister. This is not the time or the place to be carrying her.
This is the post office.
It's like, we are in public. Please act like it. Oh my God. It was rough. So how are you faring with your upper respiratory gunk?
I'm getting through. I had to make a phone call today, and my voice had been mostly okay in the morning.
Yeah.
And it was mostly fine. And then I had to make a phone call, and I went, hello, my name is Morgan. It got so high-pitched and so squeaky. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm doing my best. And I was able to have the phone conversation. And then I hung up, and I said to the other people I'm working with, I was like, of course it's the moment I make a phone call that my voice just completely gives out on me.
Oh my
I've been
God.
talking fine all day. Hello, my name is Morgan. It was so bad. She was like, what? I was like,
I'm so sorry.
All right, Emileigh, are you ready to get into the skit?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Let's do it. Hugh, have you gotten word on the latest Nazi intel yet?
Not yet, Walter. They're still waiting on some doohickey to try to break the code.
The anticipation is killing me. We need this information. We have to find out what those damn Nazis are planning.
Calm down, Walter. We've got the brightest minds in England working on this code. Once his telephone rings, we'll get the intel we need.
These guys are way smarter than me. I saw the code once, and it about broke my brain. How are these fellas solving this?
I heard one guy built a whole machine to solve this thing. It's huge. It's like 6 feet tall and just as wide, and it's full of these little dials. I couldn't even begin to describe how it works.
Do you think this is another crock? I know the Nazis like their witchcraft. Are we the same with belts and light bulbs?
The pair sit in silence, waiting. Finally, the phone rings. The men look at each other. Well, don't just stand there. Answer it. Walter lunges to the phone.
Hello? Yes. Yes! Okay, writing the intel down now. We'll send word to command ASAP. Hugh, that son of a bitch did it. He cracked the Enigma code.
Ooh.
Ooh, the Enigma!
So today, oh my God. I am so sorry. So today we are going to be talking about Alan Turing, who I think is one of my new favorite people of all time. He is great. Literally, I think he's one of the smartest people to have ever existed. Like, this man just oozed brain cells. I don't know. I read a lot of things, and a lot of them involved math, and I'm just going to go ahead and say, like, I could not read everything about Alan Turing because a lot of it involved math, and I'm not good at math. So I was literally...
I could do like algebra, and that's... I stop there.
Yeah, algebra, I can do a little bit of geometry, the stuff that makes sense. But, like, they'd be like, oh, and these are some formulas and, like, concepts here. And I was like, I literally don't understand these at all. I have no clue. So,
yeah. Can you tell me who he was as a person? I don't need to know the math.
Yes, and I had to go do a lot of digging because most of the sources I found really focused on what he accomplished, but not so much of who he was as a person. Like, I had to find, like, interviews with people who knew him to get information about who he was and, like, what his interests were.
Well, I hate that, like, I feel like this happens a lot in history, that we tend to talk about what a person did as opposed to, like, who they are. And what they did is very important.
Absolutely.
It's awesome. But, like, I want to know who they were as a person, too.
Right. Like,
what? So I'm very glad we're doing this.
Yes, me too. And I'm going to do my best. Of course, I don't cover every little thing because there is a lot that happened. And unfortunately, Alan Turing had a very short life. So there's also just not a lot to go over. And this is also a continuation of our Pride Month series. And Alan Turing was a gay man. So we'll just jump into it. Apologize again for my voice. I'm very sorry, everyone. So, Alan Matheson Turing was born in London in 1912 to Julius Matheson Turing and Ethel Sarah Stoney. His father served in the British civil service in India, and actually, like, his parents lived full-time in India. And him and his older brother John would go back and forth. Well, they mostly lived in London, and the source I read said they stayed in, like, foster homes, but I'm not sure if it's like family and friends took care of them, or if they were in boarding schools, or I don't think it was like the foster system like we have like today in the US. But apparently their mom didn't want them to grow up in India. She wanted them to grow up in London. So apparently there were a lot of scientists and physicists on his mother's side of the family, so it runs in the Stoney genes, apparently.
Bunch of smart people.
And Alan became very interested in science when he was young. When he was 13, he went to the Sherborne School in Dorset, where his love of mathematics and logic shined. And it was actually here that he realized he was gay, because he actually developed, the source said he fell in love with a fellow schoolmate, but that schoolmate unfortunately died from an illness. It's very sad. And he actually, like, let go of his religion after this and became an atheist after this tragedy.
Poor guy.
I know. After this, he went to King's College after he failed to get into Trinity College at the University of Cambridge, which was, like, the beacon of mathematics at the time. And it wasn't because he wasn't smart enough. It was just a lot of different issues that were going on.
Okay.
I think part of it was like the tuition. Like he couldn't get in because of the tuition. And like, while his family like were well off, I don't know. It was weird. It was weird.
Yeah.
And this is in the 1930s. While he was attending university in 1935, he encountered what's called the decision problem that was proposed by David Hilbert, who's a mathematician. Mm-hmm. And basically what this problem posits is that there is like a formula or a problem that can explain the fundamentals of mathematics.
Okay.
That's about all I can offer you, because more was explained to me and I did not get it, and I don't like to
we're just gonna roll with it.
Yeah, I don't like to talk about things I don't understand, so if you want to look more into the decision problem by David Hilbert, you can.
Cool.
But essentially it's a theorem that's the fundamental basis for all mathematical solutions. And Alan was like, I want to try to solve this problem. And he was a very good runner. And so he would work on like thinking through the problem while going on jogs. Huh. And he didn't read any kind of like other people's like writings or theories on it. He came up with everything himself because he was such a huge logic nerd. And
love it.
While contemplating the decision problem, he came up with an idea for a machine that would record different marks on an infinite loop of tape and perform functions based on those marks. And this is the foundation for the modern computer. So while he was at school, he was pretty introverted. He didn't socialize a lot. By all accounts, he wasn't an asshole. He kept to himself.
Yeah.
He was really like in his own mind. He didn't give a fuck about social norms. He was just like, I'm just me. And in all the sources I was reading, it talked about how he contemplated the human mind and soul a lot.
Yeah.
From like a mathematical standpoint, and about how machines could potentially someday match the human brain and a human soul, and like, what is a soul?
So he's in the 30s just thinking about AI.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
What the hell?
Cash, yeah.
Super cash. My God.
So in 1936, he did eventually go to the Advanced Study Institute at Cambridge. So he did finally go to Cambridge. And he pioneered recursion theory and invented the Turing machine.
Okay.
So the Turing, and I have pictures in the notes for you, Emma.
Okay.
So this is a quote from Paul Gray for Time magazine in the 90s. Quote, "The Turing machine was, quote, a fairly simple typewriter-like contraption capable somehow of scanning or reading instructions encoded on a tape of theoretically infinite length. As the scanner moved from one square of tape to the next, responding to the sequential commands and modifying its mechanical response, if so ordered, the output of such a process, Turing demonstrated, could replicate logical human thought." So basically what I understand is that you have like a tape, like a VHS tape almost.
Okay.
And it has different symbols on it. The machine reads the symbols, and based on a certain combination, it would perform a function.
Okay.
And then like it would go to the next like series of things, and it would perform a different function based on that. But the tape is infinite because it's an infinite loop essentially, so it could perpetually go forever. And I have a picture. You can actually like buy and order and like build your own Turing machines.
Cool.
Yeah, if you look up Turing machine, I saw some things on like Amazon. They're still around. They're still used in like the study of CPUs today.
That's cool.
So the Turing machine would act according to a pre-recorded code of instructions based on a symbol on an infinite tape loop, like I said. It's the first model for a computer that could do multiple functions and had a memory bank rather than having to reconfigure the thing each time you want to use it. So it had multiple uses, and that tape was essentially a memory bank.
Cool.
Yeah.
God, and that's in 1936?
Yeah.
What a smart cookie.
I cannot even get my brain around how intelligent this man was. I really can't. So, like I said, the Turing machine is still used today for research and study. It's used to model what a CPU does for like computer science students. And there's a concept called Turing completeness, which modern computers have. And that means that the limit to what a computer can do is dependent on their memory, like on a computer's memory. So if a computer is maximizing what it can do based on its storage, then it has Turing completeness.
So it wouldn't have Turing completeness if it had theoretically infinite storage.
I guess, yeah.
Huh. All
And
right.
this machine could be expanded upon to complete even more tasks with different instructions, which would eventually be the universal Turing machine that had a lot more functions. Like, when we're talking about, like, the human mind, it's really talking, from what I gather, like, mathematical computations. It's very rote at this time.
Okay.
Like, solving equations. It's not like what we think of like AI. It's not like Blade Runner or anything like that.
Right.
Just like it can solve equations.
We're thinking, equations. We're thinking of like the earliest of the early calculators.
Yes.
Like things like this. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
In 1937, he published a paper called On Computable Numbers with an Application to the Entscheidungsproblem, which I meant to look more into, but it's one of those like really fundamental mathematic papers that he published, especially like regarding to computers. So again, like he's already thinking like 100 years into the future almost, like about how machines can do this, and his ability to just like understand math, and I'll get into it later, is just it boggles the mind. It really does. So in 1938, he was in the U.S. He went to Princeton and did a little bit more research on mathematics. And while he was there, he learned about like encryption and code breaking and just picked it up as a hobby because he loved logic. He was like, I'm just going to like do logic for fun.
Can you imagine him in an escape room?
He would literally walk in.
Imagine?
He would walk in, spend 5 minutes looking around and be like, I've solved it.
Yeah, no one could ever beat his time.
No.
Ever.
Ever.
I want him on our team.
I know, right? And in that same year after he was at Princeton, he went back to Cambridge, 1938. Next section, World War II. So World War II breaks out. All the shit is happening. We've talked about World War II before. And there are codes that need decrypting.
Yeah, codes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Bletchley Park Government Code and Cipher School in Buckinghamshire was the major decryption site trying to crack German and Japanese secret codes in World War II.
What was it called again?
Bletchley Park Government Code and Cipher School.
Why?
They always have the longest names for things.
God, they're so bougie. Like, let me name things 17 names long because it sounds fancy.
It was shortened to just Bletchley Park.
Oh.
So
it didn't even have the word school in it. I feel like that's the important part.
I know, right? Well, it wasn't really a school. It was more of just like a group? Like a group. It was like an organization, really, like a secret organization that sole focus was decryption.
Okay.
In 1939.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. In 1939, Turing was called to Bletchley Park very soon after the UK entered the war. So there were about 30 people that had been recruited as code breakers, and some people included archaeologists, linguists, chess pros, crossword puzzle enthusiasts, and 2 mathematicians, one of which was Alan Turing. One man that was in the documentary that I watched said there were gay men, Jews, anarchists, and free thinkers who had all gathered around to be essentially a code-breaking juggernaut. So it was they were mostly men, but it was still a pretty diverse group of these white English men. All right.
I like it.
So now we're going to take the focus off Alan for a little bit and talk about the Enigma code.
Okay.
So the Enigma machine was developed by German scientists and engineers, whatever, and it was used to codify German messages. And this machine could have up to 1 million combinations.
Did you say 1 million?
Yeah.
Did you mean to say that twice?
I did.
What the fuck? What?
Yeah. So the way that it worked, and I have a picture of it, I'm going to try my best to explain it without visual. So you have like essentially a typewriter. Mm-hmm. And then the keys of the typewriter are, each key is hooked up to a rotor in the Enigma machine. So like each spoke corresponds with one letter, but it's not in order. There's like, it's kind of random. And these can be moved at any time. And so as you type, and there's 3 rotors, and like if you press like a U, it would go through the first rotor, the second rotor, and the third rotor and do a D. But then one of the rotors would turn. And you could press the U again, and it wouldn't be a D again. It would be another random letter.
Oh.
So there's not a one-to-one correspondence between the letters that are typed on the typewriter with the output message.
Okay, well then how would the Germans unscramble that?
So if you knew the original setup and like how each letter was keyed into the rotors, you could decrypt it.
Oh.
So they had some way to know like what the original setup was when the message was sent out.
Okay.
Then they would replicate that setup, and then they would, I guess, like retype it, and then they would get the actual message.
Okay. Yeah.
It was very complicated but very effective because
Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
the documentary I was watching said that if a modern day computer tried to brute force this code, like break the code, it would take over a year of it running 24/7 for it to break the code.
What? Mm-hmm. A modern computer?
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah. So there was no way that people were just going to break this code by hand. It was an enigma, therefore the Enigma machine. The picture I have, it doesn't do it like the most justice, but it was the best. It's got like the green and the pink and the blue and the yellow. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of like how an Enigma machine was set up. And then like you see the plugs, and like the plugs would go in, and then like there's the 3 rotors. And then the lamp board, so there's a keyboard and you would press it, and then the lamp board would show you what letter was being typed.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So like if you pressed a D and then like the U showed up, you could see like, oh, that was U, and then you press D again and it would be like S. And you press a U again and it would be like a B. And you could see what letter was being switched each time you typed on the lamp board. If that makes sense. So you could see like, okay, this was what showed up in the message. I'm sure it wasn't like you just type on a computer. Like I'm sure it was like one letter at a time, recording which letter made, and then that message would get sent out. So what are the Allies going to do? Like all these encrypted messages are going through, and no one could figure it out. So the code breakers had 2 perfect replicas of the Enigma machines, and were being swarmed with coded messages, but they were like, we have no idea what the original like setup was. Like we can't crack this encryption. The machine did its purpose was to be able to not give away the secrets of the Nazis, even if they did capture an Enigma machine. Mm-hmm. So it was doing its job. But here comes Alan Turing, mathematical smarty pants he is. So he delved into this problem head on, and he approached the issue from a mechanical perspective, not a human perspective. Mm-hmm. So he was already thinking about like the logic, like, okay, well, there's only 26 letters in the alphabet. There's only so many combinations those can have. Like just started doing his brain. Like his brain started going, and he developed what's called a bombe, B-O-M-B-E, in 1940. Okay. And I have a picture of the bombe. So this was a machine that could decrypt the Enigma code. And the way that it worked is that the way that the German messages were written is that they contained what they called cribs, which are basically words that would almost always be included on a message of a certain type. So like it always had like the rank of an officer, or like if it was a weather report, it would say this evening's storm, or some like very consistent. And the documentary I was watching was saying that English has a lot of different sounds that make sense together, but German only has a few that are like constant. And so it's a little bit easier to figure out like if these certain letters are together, it's probably this word. It's really hard to understand like just verbally, but using like the cribs, like they could identify. And so like you pull it up so I can see. It's a lot easier to explain if you're like watching it. But if you look at, so the bombe machine, it has all these dials, and each set of 12 worked on one code.
Okay.
So it would go like 3 down, 4 across, and each set of 12 would be working on one code. And I think it was like the top ones would like rotate until they got a hit, and then the next would rotate until they got a hit, and then the third one would rotate until they got a hit. But they were able to crack the Enigma code this way. They were able to decrypt the Enigma machine codes and able to figure out what the Nazis were saying.
So every time they had a message, they had to run it through this machine?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And there wasn't like a certain amount of time it would take. I'm sure like some messages were a lot harder to decrypt than others, but they were able to consistently decrypt messages with this machine. And they had oodles of information.
God, and the Germans had no idea that it had been decrypted, so they just continued to use it.
Right.
And they were like, what's happening now? I mean, this was seriously a pivotal point in World War II. We could not have won it without this machine.
It absolutely was, yeah. So in the documentary I was watching, there's a woman named Jean Valentine, and she was a machine operator of the bomb during World War II. And she was talking, like, she's a tour guide in the museum at Bletchley Park is now a museum, and she's a tour guide there. And she described how when a bomb stopped and indicated a possible letter combination, they would call that into a phone that went to an unknown location.
Yeah.
And she learned when she came on as a tour guide, like 15 years prior to the documentary, so decades after World War II, that everything was in the same like location, but everything was so compartmentalized and so top secret that they had no idea what anyone else did.
Oh, shit.
And like even after the war, like everyone, it was kept top secret. And you couldn't tell anyone what you did.
Did the Germans find out that the Enigma had been broken before the war ended?
I don't know. I actually don't know.
Huh.
I don't think they did because they kept using it.
Yeah. Actually, I'm kind of curious. Because I could see...
Maybe they did because there did start to be a different type of code that was used that I'll get into in a little bit.
Yeah. Well, this says they likely didn't until after World War II was over. So I could see needing to continue to keep that a secret, like, even after World War II, because if they still don't know, if they try something else, they'll be like, still got you.
Right, exactly. Because of the bomb machine, the Allied forces had tens of thousands of documents of information from the Axis forces.
Damn.
Yeah. They had, I don't think they even knew what all to do with the amount of information they got. And now you have a machine doing what human cryptologists have been doing to this point.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, the cryptologists are still doing what they're doing. They're still breaking codes, but the Enigma machine specifically is being broken by the bomb. And it wasn't just Alan Turing and it wasn't just the bomb. Like, the entire, like, Bletchley Park organization was, like, constant monitoring and code breaking and all this stuff. So as we go through the war, 1940, we have the London Blitz, and then supplies were being shipped into England from across the Atlantic. But the Germans had a very efficient system where they had, like, grids on their maps and stuff, and whenever they were in a certain grid, they would use their radio signals to, like, tell Central Command, like, I'm in this system, and they were able to coordinate attacks on Allied vessels.
Okay.
It was a lot. I was like, you know what? I bet they really could have used Hedy Lamar's radio skipping frequency technology at this time, but
but it was invented by a woman, so silly lady.
Yeah. Anyway, we're talking about Alan Turing. So the Enigma machines that were used for the naval commands were especially difficult to decrypt. It was even harder than, like, the land-based ones. And Alan Turing decided he would personally crack the naval Enigma. He started working on it, and it was like day and night and day and night. A lot of failures because it was just that difficult to crack. But eventually, because he's a smarty farty, he did figure it out. So there was a new feature of the naval Enigma, and the method that he used to crack it was called Banburismus. Don't know why.
What?
I don't know why. That's just what he called it.
Okay.
His method was Banburismus. But he figured out how to synchronize two encrypted texts using those cribs that we were talking about, and he was able to like look at the similarities between the two and figure it out. It explained it. I didn't totally understand it, but that's what happened. Take my word for it.
Okay, I believe you.
And in 1941, some German submarines were eventually captured, and the Allies were able to get their hands on a naval Enigma machine and other decrypted messages that were gathered, which allowed the bombs to start decrypting the naval Enigma machines or messages.
Ooh, got him.
And this helped prevent more Allied ships from being destroyed. I think the documentary said they went a few weeks without a single ship being destroyed.
Wow. You know what all this is giving in my brain? The game Battleship. Because, like, the grid pattern and, like, that's how I'm imagining it right now.
Except it's, like, real life.
Yeah, except real life and much scarier. Yes.
But that's basically what it was. Like, you had a grid system, and then the Nazis would be like, I'm at B4, and there's an Allied ship carrying wood, and then all the other U-boats in the area would go and attack the ship. So that is very similar to Battleship for sure. Oh, I wrote it right here. In the first 23 days after the first decryption, no U-boats attacked Allied ships because they were able to avoid them because they knew where all the boats were.
Look at that.
I know. So there's another...
And what year was that? Sorry,
1941.
41. Okay, got it.
So there's another change that happened in 1940, 1941. There was a shift from Morse code, which everyone was used to what's called either toonie or tunny. And it's the
Oh, yeah.
It's that noise. And apparently it's based on the sounds made by teletypewriters, but it's that high pitched, like, siren noise almost. So they're like, oh shit, now we have to decrypt this nonsense. What is this stuff going on? So they were able to build a replica of the machine they used to make these noises just by listening to it. So they're all a bunch of smarty farties. But they still...
So, what the fuck?
I know, right?
How?
I have no idea. But they still weren't able to decrypt the actual messages. They could just make a replica. So after just a few weeks with the machine, Turing cracked this code. And it actually
He can't miss, can
he? He really can't. This man is so intelligent. It almost makes me nauseous. Like...
Yeah.
I'm
terrified of him.
He's one of these... I would die on this hill. He is one of the smartest, if not the smartest man to have ever lived.
Yeah. God, if you could get in his brain and just see how that works, that would be awesome.
I can't even imagine.
What does he see when he thinks of all this stuff?
I know.
Like, does it look like the meme with the numbers all over
right,
the
like
place?
the calculus meme, and he just sees numbers. In the documentary I watched, they had like little animations for Turing, and like his thoughts were all math. So
cute.
The tiny machine, the code was cracked, and this really helped the Russians when they were being invaded by the Nazis in 1943. Mm-hmm. They were able to like anticipate the attack, and actually, I didn't write this in my notes, but on their way like conquering the Eastern Front into Europe, they were like capturing all these tiny machines that they would use themselves when eventually the Cold War broke out.
You know, I wonder how close they were when they built like the replica, how close to the actual machine they were.
I don't know. It just said they built a replica. I'm sure it was close enough because he only needed a few weeks with the machine to break the code.
What the heck? Okay.
So while the cryptographers were able to break the tiny codes, the volume of messages that were coming in was just too overwhelming. And the cryptologists are animals, cryptographers are codes.
Okay.
I think earlier I said cryptologist. I was like, that didn't sound right. Anyway, but they just weren't fast enough. There were people like literally having to like listen and write things down. So Turing met a man named Tommy Flowers. He was an engineer and electronics specialist, and he specialized in vacuum tubes and valves. And he built his own machine called Colossus to help decrypt tiny messages in 1944. And Turing worked very closely with Mr. Flowers. And Other engineers apparently scoffed at the idea of using hundreds of valves because valves were still kind of new and they were seen as pretty unreliable. But Turing thought it was a great idea. He thought it was brilliant. And it worked. In February of 1944, Colossus was automatically decrypting messages between top Axis brass.
Damn.
And this gave the Allied forces an opportunity to launch Operation Fortitude.
Damn.
Which, if you don't know, Operation Fortitude was this massive misinformation campaign that was spread as the Allied forces were planning the Normandy invasion. They were giving false information to Axis powers and saying that the invasion would actually be at Pas-de-Calais, which was north of Normandy.
I love this. I love all of this.
But because of this ability to spread the misinformation, Nazi forces were not in full effect as they would have been. Like Hitler moved them all to Pas-de-Calais to be ready for the Allied invasion there, and only a very few. And even as Normandy was happening, he was like, no, we have to wait for the real invasion.
What?
Yeah.
He's been bamboozled.
Yes. He was bamboozled, and it was because of these cryptographers and Alan Turing and Tommy Flowers.
I love it.
I know. So, D-Day, June 6, 1944, the Normandy invasion is, quote, the greatest combined action of all time, which helped lead the Allied victory over Nazi Germany on May 8th, 1945.
Woo!
Unfortunately, however, for the team at Bletchley Park, they would not get public acclaim. Everything that happened there was kept super duper secret for years after the fact. Especially with Alan. He knew too much, he was too different, and he was a gay man. Because he wasn't, shy about it.
Oh, so they knew.
I don't know to what extent they knew. Like, maybe they kind of knew, but... And we'll get into it later.
Yeah.
Very, very sad later. But, he wasn't ashamed about his gayness. I don't think he purposely tried to hide it. And I don't think he had any partners at the time, so it was just like a whatever thing. I'm not entirely sure. So after the war, in 1945, Alan joined the National Physical Laboratory in the UK. He had designs of the ACE, or the Automatic Computing Engine, and the Proposed Electronic Calculator, or the PEC, that he was like, this thing could play chess. And they're like, pshaw, no it can't. You are silly. You're a silly man. The National Physical Laboratory told Turing that his designs were too outrageous. They were too expensive. They were not based in reality. And Turing was like, I can literally build a brain. That was his whole thing with the ACE computer. It was, he could build a brain that could solve algorithms and mathematical problems.
Oh my God.
So eventually he was like, F you guys, I'm out of here. So he left. And then, but his plans for the ACE computer was still at the National Physical Laboratory. And later they ended up building the first prototype computer from his plans.
Of course they did.
At the time, it was the fastest computer in the world.
It was the fattest computer.
It was the fattest computer, which it probably was. It was probably the size of a building.
Oh,
because computers were very big in the day.
In what, the 70s, they were as big as a room. So was it the 70s they were as big as a room? Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So again, he left the National Physical Laboratory, and then he went to Cambridge for a while, then went to the University of Manchester, where another computer based on his designs was being developed. Mm-hmm. And also, to go back a little bit, because I didn't know where else to put this, during World War II, in 1942, he was working with Bell Labs to create a speech encryption program called Delilah that digitally encrypted phone conversations. I read the paper on it. I did not understand a word. I think it had something to do with frequencies. I don't know. The website is computerconservationsociety.org if you want to learn more about Delilah. I really tried. I was reading it and my brain went, ah. It was the dial-up signal from the 90s.
Yeah.
There's nothing
all
going
I think,
on.
hey there, Delilah.
Yeah.
What's it like in New York City? That's all I got. Can they encrypt that?
Yeah. It was some kind of digital encryption before digital was even a thing.
That's cool.
In 1946, Turing and his group basically pioneered writing computer program code. Cash. In 1947, he started giving lectures at Burlington House on computer intelligence. In 1948, Turing wrote Intelligent Machinery, which was the, quote, first manifest of artificial intelligence, which essentially predicted AI. In 1948...
What?
In the same year, he co-designed a chess-playing program with a man named Champernowne, and it played its first game. He designed a computer program to play chess. The exact same program that National Physical Laboratory was like, pshaw, a computer could never play chess.
Oh, I bet they were eating their damn words whenever they saw that shit.
Oh, I bet. And it was not very efficient at the time. Apparently it took hours because, the opponent would make a move, and then, Turing would have to, program a bunch of stuff into the computer, and it would be, think for a while, and it'd move here, and then he'd move. It took a very long time.
Right,
but
right.
It was
the
first one. It did it. And it lost. But it did it. It didn't win. It took a while for it to win. But it still could play chess.
Yeah.
And they didn't even have screens. They didn't even have a computer screen.
Oh, this is blowing my mind.
I know. It hurt.
And I think, honestly, the thought of it not having a screen is making it more confusing to me because in my brain, computers work on magic and vibes alone.
Yeah.
I don't understand them at all.
Me neither.
So, how do you make something like that?
I don't know.
How?
Don't ask me. I don't know.
How?
I flunked out of my computer science degree.
Yeah.
I tried for one semester to do computer science, and I was like, nope, this is too hard.
I took business calculus in college, and I cried a lot. So, yeah.
So, 1950, big year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He wrote Computing Machinery and Intelligence. He developed the real first chess program called TurboChamp as part of his AI work, and he developed the Turing test, or the imitation test. And this was a thought proposal about being able to identify between a computer and a machine. So it was you have a person asking questions to two entities. One is a computer, one is a human. Mm-hmm. And when you get to the point that you can't tell the difference between the two, you've achieved artificial intelligence.
Okay.
And this was one of his quotes. One day ladies will take their computers for walks in the park and tell each other, my little computer said such a funny thing this morning.
I just imagined the robot dogs from the 90s, but if they could talk, taking it for a walk. That's what I imagine.
Guess what my computer said this morning? But he's not that far off when you think about it. I mean, it's other people that we're talking about now saying dumb shit on the internet, but it will get to a point in the language models that AI are in right now, they're generating unique things from other people's work. So
yeah.
And in 1953 he published a paper on computer chess. Okay. So that was more all of his accomplishments, but now I want to talk about Alan Turing the man and who he was as a person.
Okay. Yeah.
So his time at Bletchley Park was apparently the happiest time in his life because he was able to just do logic all day, and anytime he had an idea, they're like, cool, great, awesome, let's build it right now. Here's money.
Let's try it. Yeah.
And people took him seriously. He was a very good distance runner. He won 2 races. He got 5th place in the AAA marathon in 1947.
Cool.
At one point, he wasn't able to take public transport, and he ran 9 miles to a conference. Just casually. He's like, oh, I guess I'll just run to this conference for
Probably
9 miles.
The whole time.
I'm sure he was. He was just doing mathematical equations in his head. Apparently he had a really good sense of humor, but he, like, all of his, whenever he did say something, it was to provoke thought. It wasn't, he didn't just say things to say things. Like, he was very thoughtful when he spoke, and he continuously compared brains to machines. He was a very good friend. He did whatever he could to help. Here's a quote. His colleagues in a computing machine laboratory found him still as ready as ever with his help for their problems when his own interests were fully engaged with his biochemical theory, which I'll get into later. And as another instance, he gave an immense amount of thought and care to the selection of the presents which he gave to his friends and their children at Christmas. Oh, I know.
What a sweetie.
He's so sweet. Another interview with two sisters who were close family friends with him, Barbara Mayer and Maria Summerscale. Their maiden names were Greenbaum. They were children when Turing started seeing their father, who was a psychologist, in 1952. They described him as a warm, friendly man who treated them as people and was interested in them. Like, they were just children, but he'd be like, what are you playing with? What's going on here? And he was, like, engaging with them and, like, treating them, like, as adults, not tiny little simple babies.
Oh.
I know. Apparently he wrote Maria a letter that had, like, a logic problem in it. And she was like, I have no idea what this means. But she treasures the letter to this day.
Oh.
I know. I read, there's an article from the BBC that had two, former colleagues of his that worked closely with Alan. The first one was a man named Mike Woodger. He was Alan's personal assistant at National Physical Laboratory, and while apparently he was a little impatient and, quote, did not suffer fools, he was very sweet. Woodger knew some logic, like his dad had taught him some logic, so they got along very well. They could talk about that. And apparently after Woodger had an illness, Alan left a note on Woodger's desk when he returned to work, and this is what the note said. Quote, Dear Woodger, unfortunately Wilkinson and I have both arranged to go on leave just this moment when you are coming back. I expect you can keep yourself fairly busy, though. You could, 1, do root output. 2, try and help other people in division doing ace jobs. 3, read the folder. 4, read some good book. 5, relax. I hope you really are all right. It is a shame to have you come back and find the place deserted. You might be wise to have a relapse for a week. Yours, Alan Turing. Sweetie.
I want to be his friend.
I know. I wouldn't understand a word he said, but I would want to be his friend.
Yeah. I'll just sit there with a blank stare, just smiling and nodding.
Another man named Captain Jerry Roberts worked at Bletchley Park with Alan, and he was a linguist and a codebreaker. And he didn't directly work with Alan, but he just came across him a few times. And this is what he told BBC, quote, He dressed in a somewhat untidy brown sports jacket and rather baggy gray trousers. He was not your typical Achilles figure, not a warrior king, this man. The extraordinary thing is that this modest, quiet man was probably the most important man of his time, except possibly Churchill.
Damn.
Yeah.
And that was a possibly Churchill, not even definitively.
Yeah, except possibly Churchill.
He probably threw that on there like, maybe I should say Churchill. But
yeah.
Wow.
I only got a little bit left. In his free time, he conducted his own experiments because, again, he's a major nerd and super smart.
Yeah.
So there's a concept called morphogenesis. He was not the first person to explore this concept, but his research is still used today. This was just a hobby of his. So morphogenesis is basically a mathematical model of how randomness can happen in nature and how, like, things that are not, like, systematic occur, like leopard spots or zebra stripes. They're made from different chemical reactions during utero. And he called this phenomenon morphogenesis. And he actually, in 1952, he wrote a paper called The Chemical Basis of Morphogenesis. And it's, specifically, it's, quote, the process by which multicelled life develops its shape as it grows.
Okay.
So he wasn't able to complete his research due to his death, which we'll talk about. But it really covers non-uniform biological markers like zebra stripes.
Okay.
So he was also enraptured with sunflower seeds and, like, how sunflower seeds seem to follow the Fibonacci sequence, which is like that golden ratio thing. And actually, you can help contribute to the research to help prove his
really?
theory. Yeah, there's a website you can go to. It's like, help prove the sunflower Fibonacci sequence theory. So jumping back to morphogenesis, he developed this mathematical model on how different factors contribute to the distribution of vegetation in deserts, as well as animal markings, like I said. Specifically, what we see as random blotches and stripes are actually following a mathematical formula of sorts. And if you look at the notes, you see the Turing pattern. This is the patterns that develop from this mathematical model.
Oh.
I can't explain it, but that's what it is.
Well, one of them definitely looks like cheetah spots. And the other ones just look like...
They look random. They don't look like they follow any order, but apparently there is some kind of mathematical process behind it. There is a study conducted by Brendan Diaquino. He was an undergraduate computer science student at Northeastern University. Again, cash. Yep. This study seems to confirm Turing's model using chia seeds. And if you scroll down a little bit more, you see that the blue and red is the digital mathematical formula, and then the chia seeds are growing beneath it, and they seem to be following this mathematical model.
Okay.
There's a lot more research to it. I can't explain it, but apparently this may be the first experiment with living vegetation that supports Turing's model of morphogenesis.
It's a really cool chia pet.
Science.
Science.
He was also one of the first scientists to notice reaction diffusion systems of chemical reactions, which is, again, similar to how spots and stripes are formed. I can't explain that either. You can look up reaction diffusion. It's a weird thing where it's like sometimes a reaction happens and sometimes it doesn't. Yeah. I don't know. Okay, moving on from the science into the sad.
Oh.
So this next area is his conviction and death. So in 1952, he started an affair relationship with 19-year-old Arnold Murray. And apparently one night there was like a burglary in Turing's house. So he called the police and he said that he had a man home with him at the time because he was like, whatever. And he and Murray were arrested for crimes. They both pleaded guilty and Alan was convicted of gross indecency. And
what?
Yeah. And his options
He was in his own home.
He was in his own home. He literally called the police to report a burglary. And he just mentioned he had another man with him. And now he is, like, going to trial, essentially.
He didn't say what they were doing. They could have just been playing cards for all they knew.
It really sucks. This really sucks. So he had two choices. He could either go to prison or he could undergo chemical castration.
Oh my God.
And he did not want to go to prison, so he chose chemical castration. And this involved him taking female hormones to reduce his libido. And it really sucks because he lost like all of his top secret clearance when this came out.
Just because he was gay. Oh my God.
I know.
The smartest man to ever live.
I
what
know.
The fuck?
I know. So I get really upset. But apparently he still held on to his sense of humor. And I got this from the documentary I watched. This is a quote from Alan Turing to a friend of his. Quote, "Half the police of North England were out searching for a supposed boyfriend of mine. It was all a mare's nest. Perfect virtue and chastity had gotten to all our proceedings, but the poor sweeties never knew this. Being on probation by shining virtue was terrific, and it had to be. If I had so much as parked my bicycle on the wrong side of the road, there might have been 12 years for me."
Oh. At least he had a good sense of humor.
He did. And I've seen this next part. I've seen differing things. I think most of the media and like research around Alan Turing says this, but people who knew him says this didn't really happen. So apparently, allegedly, a side effect from taking the female hormones is that he gained weight, gained breasts, like his mind was altered. But people that knew him said that this may not have happened. Or if it did, like it wasn't really affecting him as bad as some other sources led me to believe. Like some sources said he was downright depressed. But then people that knew him were like, no, he was fine. He was still like had a good sense of humor about everything. Like, it was fine. So, June 8th, 1954, he was found dead in his home by his housekeeper with a half-eaten apple on his bedside. An autopsy report said that he had ingested cyanide. So this is weird. There is a legend that he bit into the apple that was purposefully laced with cyanide, and it was a method of committing suicide. But there's no proof of this because the apple was never tested for suicide. Some of his close friends and family don't believe that he would have killed himself. By all accounts, he was pretty cheerful. He had written notes for himself the following Monday, apparently, according to, I think it was Woodger. He had just bought, like, tickets for himself and, like, new socks. But apparently, like, you know, all those experiments he liked to do, he liked to, like, dabble in chemical experimentation. And one of those chemicals that was in his home was cyanide. And apparently he was kind of careless. So one theory is that, like, maybe because he always had an apple before bed. Like, that was his thing. One theory is that he, like, put his apple down on cyanide and accidentally ingested it. Another theory is that he was breathing in cyanide fumes. And that killed him. So no one knows. The investigation surrounding his death wasn't done appropriately.
Of course it wasn't.
Of course it wasn't. Except the only thing that is definitive is that somehow he ingested cyanide. But no one knows if it was an accident, a purposeful suicide, or a homicide even. No one knows. I know. He was 41 years old.
So young.
So young. So
Makes me very sad.
the last part of my episode, the royal pardon and his legacy. So Alan Turing received an apology from former Prime Minister Gordon Brown in 2009. And it wasn't until 2013 he received an official royal pardon from the Queen of England.
That's too late.
It's way too late. Manchester councillor and former MP John Leach was, like, fighting for his pardon. Because he was like, this is no way to treat a war hero. And homosexuality isn't even a big deal anymore. Pardon this man. And it took a fight, like a multi-year fight, to get this to happen. But eventually it did. Like, apparently at one point, members of parliament insisted that he had been appropriately convicted due to the laws at the time. So there's no, like, civil injustice going on because that was the law at the time. But there was a petition signed by thousands of people and many scientists, including Stephen Hawking. Over 37,000 people signed this petition to get him pardoned.
Wow.
And he did eventually receive the pardon. It's called the Royal Prerogative of Mercy. And it's usually when someone is found, quote, innocent of the offense and where a request has been made by someone with a vested interest. Which apparently neither of those happened, but the pardon happened anyway.
Good.
And in 2017, there was a law that was passed called the Alan Turing Law, or Sexual Offenses Pardons, etc. Bill 2016-2017, which served as legal obligation to officially pardon over 75,000 people in the UK that had been convicted of gross indecency or crimes associated with homosexuality.
Holy shit, that many?
Yeah. And that was just people that were still alive. That I think Alan Turing was the only one that officially received a posthumous pardon. I know, it's crazy. Today, Bletchley Park is a museum. There's an entire exhibit devoted to Alan Turing, including his own teddy bear.
What?
Cry. He had a little teddy bear, and it's so cute. It's got, like, a little vest.
It's got a vest.
It's so cute.
Aw.
I know. Apparently, he's on the 50-pound banknote. So,
Cool.
Essentially like a $50 bill. His research on morphogenesis and mathematical concepts in nature and biology continued to be used in cancer research and animal ecology today. Research from the 40s and 50s is still used today.
Because his brain was ahead of its own time.
It really was. And this is a quote from NIST.gov. Quote, the highest honor in computer sciences is called the Turing Award. And as I stated, like, throughout this episode, Alan Turing is considered the father of modern computers and artificial intelligence. Wow. And possibly definitely one of the smartest people to have ever lived, if not the smartest person to have ever lived.
I am blown away by him.
I am too. I know.
He saved, literally, like,
An
millions.
an uncountable number of people.
Yeah. If it wasn't for him, probably there, at least for a long time, people would be speaking German everywhere. Like,
Yeah.
it would be, yeah. He's amazing.
He really is.
Add him to the list of people. If we had a time machine, we would go back and meet them.
Mm-hmm. And
so far, that's been pretty much everyone.
Apple.
Don't eat the apple, Alan.
I'm going to add a picture of the teddy bear.
Please do.
It's so cute. Look at this little teddy bear.
Oh my God. It's not just a vest, it's overalls.
It's overalls.
What a cute little bear.
I know.
Should we go to this museum?
Let's do it. Let's go to London. Let's go to this Bletchley Park Museum. And they still have like a working, like the bomb machine is still there at Bletchley Park.
Really?
Yeah.
Did they just have the one?
I'm not sure.
Just the one machine?
I'm not sure how many they have. Because Jean Valentine was in the documentary and she was like showing how it worked because she was one of the operators. And she was like, yeah, like this is, and she was like showing us, like I was there, showing the camera, like all the little like circuits and stuff that went into the little dials. Cool. And like you just put them on there and then it works. And they just kind of dial and like tick, tick, tick. It's really cool.
That's cool.
It looks like a cool museum. They were showing like pictures of it. They have a really cool statue of Alan Turing that looks like it was 3D printed.
Yeah.
And also, like, this is the only picture I really found of him that looked like he was smiling. In all the other pictures, he was, like, so serious.
Very stoic.
And I was like, he looks like he just made a joke in this picture. And he's like,
hey. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
I've been staring at him.
It made me really sad.
He has kind eyes.
He's a very attractive man, too.
Yeah.
He does.
He's just kind eyes. I don't know how else to describe it.
And he is just, like, frumpy, apparently.
I love it. I love him.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Alan Turing, and thank you for all of your brilliant smarts at...
Thanks for your brains.
Yes, thank you for your brains. All right, that's Alan Turing.
Well, thank you. It was great.
Thank you.
I love it. Well, how long... Oh, shoot, my computer's being... God bless it. Alan, I need you.
Spirit of Alan, come fix Emileigh's computer.
Please. I forgot my mouse. I'm having to be a peasant and use my little mouse pad thing. Should we do socials?
Let's do socials.
Yeah. We have a new platform.
Yeah, just today.
Yeah. So, as of today, we're going to be adding one more to the socials, and that's YouTube.
Yeah. There's a handy new feature through our distribution software platform thing.
Now listen, just because it's on YouTube doesn't mean you get to see our beautiful faces other than our picture. We're not there yet.
Yeah.
But you can listen to them on YouTube if you do prefer that. So go check us out there. So our socials, Facebook.
Ill-Equipped History Podcast group and page. Whoa, what?
It's got a mind of its own.
Oh no.
It's scrolling on its own.
It's artificially intelligent.
Ah! Okay. Instagram.
At Ill-Equipped History.
TikTok.
At Ill-Equipped History.
Gmail.
Ill-equippedhistory@gmail.com.
And Patreon.
Patreon.com/Ill-Equippedhistory, where for $5 a month you can get access to our bonus episodes.
And stickers.
And stickers. I always forget about the stickers. I literally have them right there.
Yay! So, if you have a war hero, maybe be nice to him.
Yeah, celebrate your war heroes, you guys.
Yeah. And if you're smart enough, if you're smart like Alan, I don't know, become a war hero? I don't really know.
Do some good in the world. Do
good.
Do what Alan did. He changed the world for the better.
Always for the better. Don't become an evil villain. It's not worth it.
Don't do evil villain.
No, don't do villain.
Don't do villain. That is our new slogan.
Yes. Oh, and you know what? I can't really hold it in anymore, but I will say it. We have officially locked down a location we won't say what it is, for our Halloween bonus.
Yes. A lot of effort goes into these, you guys. We've been planning this since, like, as soon as our last one from last year. Like, what are we going to do now?
Yeah, so we've officially booked it, and we're gonna do, let's just say it's gonna be another overnight investigation, but this time unguided. So I'm not scared, you're scared. So
I'm all right. I'm definitely scared.
Yeah, Morgan, we're not going to be okay, but it's fine. Well, it's for you guys.
We will survive through it. I don't know if we'll be fine, but we'll survive through it, hopefully.
Yes, I hope so. So I just needed to get that out. A little teaser there. So
yeah, stay tuned until October when we release our episode that we haven't even done yet.
Yeah. Okay.
Fall's going to be big for us because that's when our guest appearance is going to release in August.
Yeah, in August. Yep. Don't forget about that. Guest appearance on
the History Things
podcast. Yes. I was loading. And
the hamster wheel was turning.
And then in late August is when we're actually going to be doing the investigation. And then in early October is when we'll release that episode. So, yes.
Woo. And hopefully next week I don't sound like a 13-year-old boy going through puberty.
We believe in you and your medicine.
I'm going to try.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, bye.